Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Now this week was unplanned for me. I actually did not plan to do or to film what I ended up filming. And it's first experience for me, something I've been putting off for quite some time, simply because it's tough, and that is grinding a roughing end mill, sharpening a rougher. They grind totally different than a standard end mill that sharpens on the outside. You grind a rougher down in the flute, and you have to radius your wheel and tilt the workhead. It was a complex setup that took me a lot of time, so I kind of fumbled my way through it. So I got some of that to share with you. A lot of it will be voiceover, simply because the grinder's loud and annoying. And we do a test cut with one that I sharpened 3. I'll share all those with you, and successes and failures. And we get into some K&T mill maintenance. I have to clean the filter out on it. It's been a busy week. Winter's coming. I've been cutting wood, and my time's been short, so hope you enjoy what I got for you. So here I'm using my radius tangent dresser to put a radius on the end of my wheel that will match the factory radius that's down in the flute of the big rougher that I'm fixing to show you me grinding in just a second. And I chose this large end mill simply because it gave me a lot of clearance. It was tight quarters grinding down in the flute of a cutter, which I had never done before. So I chose a big end mill simply for that reason, and this one was basically burnt completely up. It probably had 25% of the cutting edge that was able to be sharpened, so it was no loss if I messed it up. So I had a lot of material to grind away here before I could even attempt to sharpen this thing. So I'm really just dragging it back across the wheel on each tooth, indexing to the next, and doing the same. And I don't show it, but towards the end, to get everything in good in time, I take the finger that's sticking up off the fixture here and index on the back of the tooth, just to ensure that I get a good even grind on each tooth. So this was definitely a learning experience for me, and I'd really love to get one of those air spindles. This one rides on 3 fingers and is kind of jerks back and forth. So it worked out, but man, it was tough learning to sharpen these things and get the proper edge geometry. So my first ever attempt to grind a roughing end mill, and they're really quite a bit different than a standard end mill. There is no secondary cutting edge, it's all primary. And you have to tilt the head of the grinder to match the helix or the lead angle of the flute. Plus you got to grind a radius in the end of the wheel to give you the proper tooth geometry. This cuts in a positive action. So that was quite a bit of work. As far as how I determined the radius to grind in my wheel, I just used a radius gauge in this end mill when it was from the factory, and got really close to that. So I should have similar geometry to the factory end mill. So let me get you a little better look at this, and we'll see how it cuts, because definitely it looks good. But the proof, of course, will be how it performs. So let me show you this, and then we'll set it up and run it on a piece of steel. Alright, so I'd have to say that does look pretty good, if I do say so myself. For a first shot anyway, grind looks pretty good, and it's good and even all the way around. No real mess ups. I did get into the body of the end mill a little here on each one in order to grind this back tooth. I had a little larger wheel than probably what I should have been using to grind this, but it worked out. You see, I think the geometry's alright. Got a radius here that gives us a positive cutting action on those teeth. So I think all that's left is to stick it in the mill and run it on some steel and see how it does. So let's try it out. Right. There we go. We're going to cut on this piece. I mean, it's just a piece of scrap. It's got a tap broken off in it, and it's garbage, but I believe it's mild steel, pretty soft. So we'll see how this end mill does on this. It's at 250 RPM. Go 3/4 of an inch a minute on our feed. Like it's cutting good to me. I'd call that a success. Or if it damaged any of the teeth. So let's get a look at it. It sounded good. Acted like it cut good. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. Pull it out. Get a good look at it. Cutting edge examination. So that cut exactly like I would have expected it to, if it was new. No cutting edge damage at all. In fact, it's hard to even tell that I used it other than a little staining from the chip rolling around off the cutting edge. So you can't beat that. So good place to start. At least I know I'm on the right track. It's not the easiest end mill to grind, but worked out well. Alright, so here's some fast forward shots that'll hopefully give the people that are interested a little better understanding of how I pulled this off. Now, keep in mind these are my very first attempts. I have very little information on grinding these. It's just really hard to find. There's almost nothing out there on it, at least as far as I've found. There are some books out there that I'm researching, but I haven't got hold of those yet. Now I'm having to raise the grinding wheel to back out of this grind after I get fully ground the length. Then I raise the workhead, back it out. That gives me the clearance to index, and then lower the workhead and grind the next. Definitely not an ideal setup. There's better ways to do it, but this was what I worked out at the time, and it actually ended up giving me pretty good results. But it was definitely a learning experience, I'll say that. It took me quite some time to get set up. You got to grind a radius on the wheel, tilt your workhead to match the helix angle, all that good stuff. So it was fun. I enjoyed it, and it worked out, which was a bonus. So now it's time to refine the setup. This is the last bit of corn that me and my wife Elizabeth are going to gather this year. So it's pretty much played out. Time to get some of this stuff in the freezer and get ready for winter. It actually made decent corn even though it went down. Kind of surprised.
pretty good color. Yeah. I got a booth down on the other side.
This is the part that's not so fun. You get a bunch of corn. What do you think?
It's the sticky part.
Yeah, but it's good in the winter, that's for sure. So it'll get bagged and frozen. On it.
Yeah. By me.
Alright, so here's the job that I was asked to do, and that is cut this in half. Now this is just some sort of, high carbon steel. It's a wood shaper bit is what it is. It cuts that profile in a piece of wood. My dad wants both of these pieces for some particular reason. I don't work in wood. I don't know what he's actually up to, but that's what he wants. That's what he's going to get. At least I'm going to try to anyway. So I have to come up with a reason, or with a way to hold this in order to cut it in two pieces and save both pieces. Then I'll have to surface grind them to, make them flat on the one side. But anyway, what I'm going to do to hold this, got a 1/2 inch aluminum dowel here. I'm going to super glue it into the bore of this cutter. I'm going to hold this in my powered workhead on my cutter grinder and then use a cutoff disc to cut this in half. But I don't want this thing to lose its temper because it's just a high carbon steel. It'll lose its ability to hold a cutting edge if I get it too hot, and it will break loose the bond of my super glue. So I'm going to be using the little Noga Mini Cool to spray on this while I cut it. So let's get set up and cut this thing in half. Hopefully it works out. It should. I'm going to go in slow because I don't want this blade to wander, and I've got the table locked so it can't move. Cutter grinder is definitely the Swiss Army knife of the machine shop, that's for sure. Go. It's all the way through. Call that a success. I left just enough on there to keep that radius intact. And it stayed, wow, that popped right loose. And it stayed cool. press that off. Alright, so I really think that gives your parts a good look. It's not strong. I mean, it scratches easy and stuff, but it definitely looks better than just, you know, plain steel, in my opinion. And from my experience, now I've done a bunch of parts like this in the past, it seems to help, at least to some extent, with rusting. I've done this set of, these were covered in rust, so I wire brushed them hard, just heat blued them, dipped them in oil, and I've used these things quite a bit, and they haven't rusted at all. So it seems to help some. It may, you know, maybe that's just a coincidence, but I've done several parts like this, and it seems to help. So I think it looks good, and it's easy. That's the main thing. So yeah, there you go. So I've been running the K&T now for quite some time, since I did some major service on it. You know, I pulled the gearbox out, changed the shaft for the clutch engagement, all that stuff, changed the oil in it, and flushed out the gearbox. You know, this whole unit come out, and a lot of you guys probably remember that. But since then I have not checked the filter housing to see if it picked up any dirt or anything. So let me bring you in a little closer. We'll pull this filter out and check and see if it's got any debris or anything stuck in it. I'm just curious to see if it's still clean. Okay, so just like a motor, you know, if you do a rebuild or something on it, you don't leave that oil in it, or at least the filter and stuff on it, you know, for very long, for fear that you've stirred up dirt and grit and, you know, anything that was, you know, stuck in here. So that's the idea here, is I just want to see if I got any debris or anything in here that I can get out. It's got a little pocket in here that's supposed to catch and hold stuff, and spin this every time you run it, supposedly, and it knocks any of that debris loose. It's a metal filter. It's really cool, and if you guys didn't see the video where I showed this, which was only, you know, a few minutes or a minute or so, then you'll be probably pretty interested at how this filter's made. It's definitely neat. Should come out of there now. Really thought the design of this was neat. Oh no, fudge. Bad idea. Alright, so it wasn't that awful much oil, but it was enough to get all over my pants. Yeah, so I'm glad I pulled this out to check it. All that debris and goo that I broke loose is on this filter, and I can see quite a bit in here. Let me get some of this cleaned up a bit, and I'll show you, you know, why I wanted to pull this out. Alright, so there's a look at the filter. Really neat design. Every other plate has a little leg on it that hooks to this pin, and then when you turn it, see how it just kind of scoops that stuff off? So that's the way it does. Because every time I run this, you know, it says turn handle daily. Every time I run it, I do that, and for good reason, because it gets clogged up. Let me pull out all the goo that's in the bottom of the trough that this sits in, and I'll show you what all is in this. Even after I cleaned it as thorough as I tried, as thorough as I did earlier. So there it is. I mean, that's probably about 50% of it anyway. That's quite a bit of goo. Who wants that circulating through their oil system? I mean, a lot of it feels like grit or the sealant that they put on the insides of these castings. It breaks off over time. Yeah, there's a big metal chip right there. So, filter's doing its job. But that's the reason I'm cleaning this, because it needs it. Alright, so I just flushed everything out with some solvent and a rag. I'm glad I done that. I've been putting this off for a while. It definitely needed it. That stuff had, all the stuff that I had missed when I was doing all the work on this, the filter caught it, so it's definitely doing its job. It's good. Alright, so 2 successes and a failure. These, being larger end mills, ground, they were definitely hard to grind, but they ground easier than this smaller end mill with a tighter helix. No matter what I did on this one, I could not get a good smooth movement. That grinding fixture end mill grinding jig that I use, it's kind of a cheaper version, which uses 3 fingers that sit on the air, or that spindle that you move back and forth. They make air bearings, which, from what I've read, are a lot better than the unit that I'm using. I even went to the extent as to grind a groove for the finger rest to ride in to give me a smoother pull. It really didn't make much difference. Still, I just gave up on it. But I'm glad that I've done this. It was a learning experience and made everything that I've done in the past as far as grinding standard end mills seem so much easier, because there just is not much clearance when you're trying to grind down in a groove like that. So I'm happy I did it, and I feel like that I gained quite a bit of knowledge. I just still got a ways to go on it, but there you go. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed the footage that I brought you on grinding a roughing end mill. Still a long way to go for me before I'm happy with the outcome. I mean, it needs to be smooth and everything needs to work the way that it should. Right now I feel like I'm just kind of fumbling through it. So, as we progress, we'll go into more detail on it and hopefully be able to grind the smaller ones also. We'll see. But so far, so good. Got to start somewhere, I guess. I finally broke down and bought the cutting oil for the foot of this machine. It's got a built-in coolant system. And it was designed to run around cutting oil, not water-based coolant like I've been using on this thing that can cause rusting issues and all kinds of problems. So I got that. I'm looking forward to getting that in here and trying it out. But I still got to plumb in the line and make a distributor and all that good stuff. Hopefully the pump on this thing works. A lot of you guys may know that it's got some wear, so we may have to rebuild it before we can even use it. So we'll see. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I possibly may have an outdoors video coming out for those who just want to hang out a little more. I'm getting ready for winter, so I've been turning the camera on a little more on the outdoor side, cutting wood and stuff like that. So some of you guys may be interested, and if you are, keep your eyes open. I may have something coming out. So that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks to my viewers, my patrons, and subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.